Let's talk about another team who lost a lot. And I mean a lot. Probably more than any other team in the SEC, maybe even college basketball. And that's the Auburn Tigers. He's going to have a hard time trying to find spots from Walker Kessler and, of course, from Jamari Smith Jr. I think he did a pretty good job on the Walker Kessler side. He did bring in Johnny Broome, and I do think, a transfer from Morehead State, I think that's a really good pickup for them. Unfortunately, I don't know if the pieces are there from making up from Jabari Smith, though. I think that there is some good opportunities for some guys to play. Obviously Wendell Green, Katie Johnson, or be some good guards in the back there. I'm worried about the 3 and the 4. I think that that's probably the biggest concern in my mind, maybe some depth as well. The whole story of this team is going to be, can they fill the shoes of Jabari Smith, because they had an excellent season last year. I'm not trying to put them down by any means, because I do think they'll still be a decent basketball team. However, there are some concerns in my mind for this basketball team, Steve.
Yeah, I agree. And it really, what it comes down to is defense. Defense.
Yeah.
A Bruce Pearl coach team, it's all about defense. It appears from all that we've researched and we've looked at is that he's brought in kids and transfers that will buy into his defense first philosophy. So that could be a saving grace. But just like we talked about how Musselman pulled off the miracle, the magic trick of all magic tricks, bringing in that recruiting class and replacing the starting 5 plus 2. I think there aren't enough rabbits left in the hat here for Bruce Pearl, for Auburn to even be an NCAA bid team. I mean, because I love watching Auburn play and love that defensive first style. I want to see them there. I'm thinking that it just might be one of those things like by the end of January, Bruce Pearl's like, well, okay, we need to approach this a little bit differently, still play the defense, maybe get some more of their recruits more regular time rather than trying to keep pace with all of the greyhounds that are in the SEC here at the top. It's not in Bruce Pearl's nature to do that. So I might be just speculating and talking out loud here, but I think there is a chance for this to be a down year for Auburn. And when you say down year for Auburn, they're not making the NCAA tournament. They're going deep into the NIT tournament.
That's a good way to look at it. I have Auburn on my preseason rankings for the SEC finishing 6th. So I think I'm right with you. I do think that they are going to take a little bit of a step back. I could be shocked. They could find a replacement for the Jabari Smith. Right now, I just don't see it. I'm sure they're obviously working it through. I do think Broome has a really good upside. I think his ceiling is really high. But when I look at their non-conference, and obviously we know what they have to face in the SEC, do they get the 20? I think that's going to be a tough challenge for them. I can see them sitting around 19. 20 is tough. And I think that they can find a way to have a winning record in the SEC, but I think it's close, like a +1 or 2 win differential, like a 10-8 or something. I look at their non-conference schedule. They play Memphis, they play USC, they play St. Louis. I mean, it's not a walk in the park non-conference. So there's a lot of really, really tough games for this team. Can they figure it out and put it all together? The month of November should let them do that. I mean, they started off against George Mason. That's also not a walk in the park either.
Exactly.
George Mason's kind of on the up and up in the Atlantic 10. There's a lot of people thinking George Mason's the sleeper in the Atlantic 10 this year. And then you go against South Florida, who's also not a terrible team. So they start off probably, these are one of those teams that you can pay attention to. Some of the better games probably initially right off the bat based on competition wise will probably involve Auburn versus their competition towards the beginning of next week. I'm really looking forward to that one. I mean, I'm actually looking at the schedule now, and I'm quite shocked that we get to see a game like that on the first game of the year for Auburn's against a George Mason team who arguably could be one of those teams that could make the tournament. Probably not on an at-large bid, but still something to really pay attention to. I think Auburn's going to be, there's an opportunity Auburn could be in trouble, and we could be talking about this in a completely different light once we get towards March, Steve.
I agree. And then I showed some restraint. I waited about 10 minutes into this podcast before I said guard play.
Oh, fair.
The fact that Katie Johnson and Wendell Green are back, that's going to lend some stability. They're both tenacious defender. Green is just a Tasmanian devil type defender. So right there in their backcourt, they're going to have a steadying presence. I can see them being effective getting the ball to Broom. I think Broom will use this pre-conference schedule to get adjusted and feel better. But it might even take him a week, a couple of games in the SEC to really adjust to that level. I mean, he was very good at Morehead State, in Ohio Valley Conference. I mean, it's a good conference. It's not the SEC. So, I think it's a matter of a lot of these guys getting comfortable, but by having those two guards in Johnson and Green, I think that's going to help them set the tone right off the bat, even with the tough non-conference schedule. Where look, we're playing defense, we're in your face, we are shutting down the perimeter shot. You're not going to drive on us. We're going to block shots. We're going to rebound. I think that will help give Auburn confidence. So that's where I could see what you're saying. That's 18, 19, maybe 20 wins. I think everything has to fall right in that scenario that we're talking about now. I mean, I'm looking more, I think, of a 16, 17 win team, which gets them to the NIT. And it's a program builder. It gives Pearl a chance to catch his breath, see what's happening in the conference, and see what he can do maybe more through the transfer portal to find guys that are going to fit his defense first.